Good afternoon and welcome to the University of Tasmania's online series for Alumni Explore. Firstly, as a reflection of this institution's recognition of the deep history and culture of this island, the University of Tasmania wishes to acknowledge the traditional owners, the Palawa people and custodians of the land upon which we meet, and pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Rebecca Cuthill and I'm the Director of Advancement here at the University of Tasmania. This series Explore provides an opportunity specifically for you, alumni of the University of Tasmania, for advancement and inspiration. One of the greatest advantages of being a member of the alumni community is the ability to tap into a group of influential individuals with vast global impact. This series offers an exclusive opportunity to connect with your peers, find among them innovators, thought leaders, and perhaps even, after today, potential collaborators. You are such an important part of the fabric of the university, and that is why we are providing opportunities to access webinars tailored to your needs, such as the one we're going to enjoy this afternoon. So just a few housekeeping notes. First of all, you must do as I didn't, which is take mute off when you're speaking. No, in seriousness, before today's in-conversation gets underway, your microphone, camera and raised hand function have all been disabled, so our guests will not be interrupted. But there's two ways to interact today. We encourage you to ask questions to our presenter. This can be done by typing them into the Q&A function that you see on your screens. This session will also have moments where you can be interactive, and this can be done by typing your responses into the chat function. And finally, I just wanted to remind you that this conversation is being recorded for later access on our YouTube channel. So it's clear from the registrations that we've had today that this is a topic that's really resonated with people, as we're increasingly keen to see if we can turn a dream into reality. Today, we're lucky enough to be joined by an alumnus and educator with a rich range of experiences across business, community and international projects, with a passion for unlocking momentum in others. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Adam Mostogl. Adam graduated with a Bachelor of Environmental Design in 2009 and a Master of Teaching in 2014. As CEO and Chief Entrepreneur of the Diemen project, every single day is focused on making opportunities matter through helping more people start businesses with confidence, supporting existing businesses to grow and be resilient in these changing times, kickstarting social enterprises, running engaging workshops and events, as well as private advisory work to help larger organisations change for the better. Adam is also the founder, inspirer of Illuminate Education Australia, which since 2010 has inspired over 16,000 students from over 220 schools across Australia to be confident, creative and capable through immersive entrepreneurial education programs delivered nationwide. We're incredibly grateful to have Adam with us here today. Welcome, Adam.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And thank you for that introduction. I am here behind my slides, do not worry, but I am going to get us started with our session. So you think you want to start a business. But before we do, I want to add my acknowledgement to the traditional custodians and land in which we are all gathered on, and pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging, and recognise that for well over 65,000 years, they've innovated, they've shaped and they've created on these lands, and there is still so much for us to learn from them. I am really excited to have you all here as we talk through what it takes to start a business and explore this as an opportunity, but then also to start thinking about, okay, what can you create and what can you shape? And so I'm going to pop myself up on the screen. I am a real living person, but I want to take you through a little bit about the current project I'm working on, which is called the Shift Lab. I want to break down some misconceptions of starting businesses, how to get ideas to become reality, and then also how to focus on impact. And then I'm going to try and get through it reasonably quickly so that then I can answer all the questions that you have about business, about social enterprise, about impact. I will happily chat for as long as they keep the call open for. And so please make sure that you make the most of the session for this purpose as well. As already mentioned, I'm involved in a couple of things, and so that's already been sort of talked through, but I guess I'm really passionate around how business does good, and that's why I do the work that I do with Illuminate, with the Diemen project. I'm also the director of an RTO, and the exciting project that I'm working on is Tasmania's first social impact incubator. I've been listed in Australia's top 30 entrepreneurs under the age of 30 and a past finalist for Young Australian of the Year, and had the opportunity to travel internationally around social impact and innovation ecosystem. So I was a guest of the US government a couple of years ago, and I helped facilitate the world's largest innovation process for the Sustainable Development Goals, and be heading over to India in December as part of that. But this whole thing of the Shift Lab, let me talk about this first, and then we can talk about what we're going to have a discussion around, which is starting businesses. But the Shift Lab is actually Tasmania's first social impact incubator. And it's all about how do we create new enterprises that are socially focused and impact driven, where purpose is absolutely key. And this for us is a real focus from our perspective. It's to look at, and it's not just about raising revenue for the sake of lining your own pockets, but actually doing good to support the community. And through everything that we do, we want to help more Tasmanians start social enterprises. And while we're going to start the workshops based in Launceston, we are looking to come down south next year and run a series of workshops down there. And at the moment, through the support of the Tasmanian government, through the Department of State Growth, it actually doesn't cost anything to access the program as well, which is really, really exciting. And through the Shift Lab, you get access to a range of workshops that we're going to deliver in person so we can build the group together. There's one-on-one mentoring check-ins as well, so I can help you individually on your own startup journey and where you are going. There's a whole heap of online learning platforms that I'm sure that, as all you Tas alumni, you probably are used to online learning platforms like I remember in my day. And so that's that one there. And then also access to a workspace, because I do know, and it's school holidays at the moment, I've ducked into the office to be away from my beautiful 3 children who would just talk the entire time. And so sometimes you need that space to get away, which is what we offer with that. At the moment, we've got just getting ready for the first round of the incubator to start later in October, but also as the dates are there, March and August. And all this information is available on the Shift Lab website. So that's me kind of giving you a very quick overview, because that's sort of just some of the stuff that I'm working on that I feel like some people here would be interested in. But let's get into this conversation. So you think you want to start a business. First of all, are you actually even in the right place to start a business? Well, from my perspective, if you are looking to solve a problem in our community, that you want to make a change, that you see, wait a minute, this shouldn't exist, this shouldn't be this way, or maybe we can do this better. If you might want to create a job for yourself and maybe for a couple of other people as well. And I get to talk to a lot of people, and they talk about having a crack at something new that people might pay you for. Like, let's go for it. But and it's all about the passion. I think some of the terms become really dangerous. Do I want to be a business owner? Do I want to be an entrepreneur? Sometimes they're very scary things. Am I actually a startup? Basically, if you are looking to create something brand new and it's got a bit of a revenue stream around it, then 100% you are here to be able to, you're in the right spot to basically go, what can you start? What can you create? And what can you make? The biggest thing is basically, if you're ready, if you think you're ready, the question becomes, are you willing to put some time and some money into something new? Now, for many of you, you might be just sort of going, hey, this is a really interesting chat, I want to be part of it. But I'm sure there are people on this call who are going, I've got an idea for something. And simply by turning up to this call says that you're actually putting that time and effort into it. And that's a really good starting point. Money kind of can come second once we've raised a bit of revenue or got some money in our bank account to be able to put forward. But the most important thing is putting time, actually the thinking, the process to build and create. Now, we are really passionate through all that we do to help you turn your skills and your passions into something. I've only ever had one person in the 1,000 odd people I've mentored in the last 18 months who came in and said, hey, I want to make as much money as possible. And so I had a conversation around, okay, so what are you thinking? Well, I think a restaurant, because, you know, everyone needs to eat. That's a really good thing. And I'm like, yeah, okay, what's your hospitality experience? Oh, I've got none. I'm like, oh, I don't know if I really want to go near your kitchen. But most people are sitting here going, hey, I want to try something. I want to test something. I want to build something that I'm really passionate around. I've got these skills and I don't know how to use them. Can we do something with it? That's where I'm really excited about. And everybody here will have some great skills and passions you could turn into something. But don't think that it has to be full time. You can start a business on a couple of hours a week. I started Illuminate way back when on 4 hours a week while I was working my retail job that I was doing while I was studying. And it was just a couple of hours a week, just firing off some emails, doing some things. I didn't even buy my first set of business cards and my banner and some promotional material until I had my first customer, because then I had enough money to actually pay for that stuff. And so you don't have to think really big with getting your idea going. You just have to think, wait a minute, how do we use the time that we have available, the skills that we have, the limited time that we've got to be able to create something brand new. The last one there is start your thinking at $100 a week. That's a really important one from my perspective. It doesn't have to be making heaps of money to get going. It's just about, can you just earn a little bit of extra revenue? And then once that gets going, you can put more time in and more time in. So again, it's about making it something that's accessible and easy. Business is not just, wait, I've got to earn a full-time wage and I've got to give 80, 90 hours a week and all that sort of stuff. No, let's actually think of something that's a hobby, something on the side that you can then build. The question then becomes, okay, I think I might have some ideas, but I don't know what I've got. And so my tip for everybody here on the call is to think about, well, if you're thinking about what you could start, think of the strengths that you have, but also what makes you famous. What do people come to you for? What do they ask you for? Who does, like when someone sits there and goes, oh, you need to go and talk to such and such because they are fantastic at this. We're often really great at pulling ourselves down because of our own skills and understanding. Plus, we've always lived with the knowledge that we have. So like it's second nature for us, but other people really respect it and really rate it. And so what makes you famous? And maybe there's something in that you can turn into things. The other side of things is, what industry specific skills do you have? And so with that, you all have skills. Like as already mentioned, I've got a Master of Teaching and my first degree was in architecture. So I approach everything with a design thinking approach that again comes second nature to me, but it's not often a skill set that appears in many other industries. And so again, this is where I sit there and go, you will have picked up things in your particular field that actually apply in other areas, but it's about a matter of moving across and actually getting out there. And so I do encourage you to think about what those industry specific skills are. Maybe what do you do in your free time? What are you passionate about? What are you getting yourself involved in? Because there could be something there. How do you help people? When someone says, I need a hand with something, what's your go-to thing? My family and I, we cook meals for people all the time. I'm not a great chef, so I'm not going to go there with a business idea, but that's just how we help. Some people just get in and do incredible things when someone needs someone to help. And sometimes that second nature reaction to do something is something you could start. The last one is, what do you spend way too much time doing? And it's that sort of feeling that, say, Sunday afternoon, 2 o'clock, you sit down on the couch and you start doing something. And all of a sudden, it's like 5 hours later and you don't know where the day's gone and the sun is setting and you've just gone, whoa, where did I go with that? But sometimes in that, whether it's a research or a skill or an understanding or just a hobby that you're working on, sometimes that is really special. And that's where we'd rather be starting from, rather than going, hey, how do I get into something very quickly that basically makes some money quickly and I just kind of hurt myself doing it? No, actually, let's look at what you're really passionate and skilled around. And so I encourage you to think about that. The other side of it that I normally put around this is to think about your head, your heart, and your hands. And so I've put the note here about putting these in the chat if you wish. And so if you want to respond, and I'd love to see what your thoughts are. But from my perspective, I'd go from the head, heart, hand. So the head is the things that you know about. So what is locked away in your head that you have? I told you about that design approach that I have in my head. That's some of the things that I know. The heart, what do you care about? So what's something that you're really passionate around? And there's sort of two sides to this. One is obviously the passion for doing something that's really positive, or you actually want to create change in. I'm really focused around passion. And how do we do that? And how do we unlock people's passion and help them with their momentum on that way? The other side of the heart angle, though, is also what kind of, I guess, that sort of burning anger that goes, why is it this way? And how can we turn that around? And if it's something that you really care about, then you're probably going to drive yourself more. You're going to invest more into it. And so it's really important to acknowledge that. The last one, hands. What can you do? What can you do with these things? What are you actually making and doing? Now, I will tell you that I've talked a little bit about my architecture skills. I've talked a little bit about my passion. My hands aren't great for much. I spend a lot of my time talking. And so I've hung some things here in this office, and let's just say they're not still on the wall. So my hands aren't great. So maybe 2 out of 3 ain't bad. But I encourage you to think about this for your own perspective. What do you know? What do you care about? And what can you do? And this doesn't actually say what your idea actually is. This just says who you are and what do you bring to the table. Because again, that is really, really important. When you are going to create something, it's got to reflect you. It's got to be of you, because then you can drive something that's really special and really different. So with that, then I start going, okay, let's actually start something. What can we do to start? It's probably easier than you think to get a business started, but the planning and thinking is what actually takes more time. And that's what I've always helped people through and worked with people around. So I won't be able to get into the planning and the thinking in too much depth, because I've only got a limited amount of time today with you all, but always really happy to chat around that. So let's go through, what does it actually take to start a business? It's kind of, this is 101 stuff. So let's start with this. So first of all, you choose a business structure. What type of structure do you actually want to run as, from a legislative perspective, a governance perspective? A lot of people jump at sole traders because it's quick, it's easy, it takes a matter of 5 minutes to get started, and it doesn't actually cost anything to register a sole trader business, but it is linked to you and linked to you as an individual. You can go down the path of setting up a company that is separate from you. You need an accountant to do that, say $700 to $1,200 to be able to pay for that. But it's a little bit more robust of a structure and allows for it to be sold and to be traded. You will notice that I don't have the partnership structure in this list for those who do know a little bit about this space, purely because I have worked on the other side of untangling partnership structures, and I am not a fan of untangling them. And so I do recommend, if you want to start a business with multiple people, I encourage you to have a look at maybe that incorporated association if it's for impact, a cooperative model, or go down the company pathway with shares so that you can actually trade with people. This will be sort of like a highlights reel of some of this stuff, and really happy to come back around in the Q&A if you've got some questions, or even just lob them in the questions now if there's something there. But for me, sole trader is probably where a lot of people start, because you actually don't know how much money you're going to take, and every cent of profit, which is income minus expenses, lands in your pocket. So as the business does well, you make money. If it doesn't do well, as long as you're covering costs, you're not going to be sort of hurt from a tax perspective. Now, once you start that registration process, you can head to register.business.gov.au, register an ABN, which is an Australian business number, an 11-digit number every business needs, and also a business name. So if I want to trade as Adam Mostogl, I've already got that one registered, don't worry. But if I was going to do that, my personal name is protected. But if I wanted to be Adam Mostogl Speaks, because that becomes a business name, I need to register that. It's less than $90 for 3 years. So it's not an overly expensive thing, but it checks it against a national register. And so that's something there just to think about and to do that. Now, you can Google for and search for ABN registrations. And while that is a thing, some places actually charge you for it. The Australian government doesn't charge you. So I recommend to go to that website so you can do it. The next thing is to check any government regulations, because that's always a big concern depending on the type of enterprise you're looking to start. And so the Australian Business Licence Information Service, or ABLIS, .business.gov.au is a really great service. You type in your residential address or your address where your business is going to be based, and you can search the local, state and federal government regulations from anywhere in the country. And so no matter where you are, you can type in the type of business you're looking to start. It's got some questions to guide you on the process, and also where you're based, and you can check what local government rules are, what the state government rules are, and the federal government rules are. I really like this one because it gives you a wealth of information. It is a government information service, so if there's a 1% chance that you're going to need it, it's going to tell you about it, because that's what they do. The amount of retail business that I've started, and the first one is the aquatic toy safety standards, because of course we don't want anyone to have any dangerous issues with pool toys. But on the flip side of it, many retail businesses don't sell them, but it's there just in that 1% chance. But the other thing I really like about the ABLIS service, if you are looking at starting something new, or even if it's a project, it also has a lot of contact details about who to call in departments and in organizations. And so that is a really great way to kind of get through the switchboard and not get lost. And so I recommend those when you are looking to start. My other tips from here is registering a business bank account. That's a no-brainer for the space of what costs, say, $4 to $10 a month. It's so much easier to separate it out. I have different colored cards in my wallet. It makes my life easier. As you are starting and growing and someone knocks on your door and says, hey, let's have a look at your accounts. I just want to make sure everything's in order. It's all separated out rather than having all of your food bills and your rent and everything else in there. Gets a bit messy. Make sure that you are insured. My tip for this is always go to an insurance broker and get a broker to help you through this so that you can actually discuss what is the relevant type of insurance that you need and not get caught by just going to the one that you've always used who may not actually provide the cover that you need for your type of business. So again, that's always a really important one to work through. And then to think about your digital presence, making sure that you get your domain names, your social tags, everything else registered so that when you launch, you've got a consistent range of names. You don't want to just pop up with all these random things from your Instagram to your TikTok to your Facebook handles to your website address. You want to think about that as part of the starting process. Now, as it says on the screen, the planning, the thinking sits underneath this, your financial models, your marketing, who's my customers, all that sort of stuff sits underneath this. And this is really the planning that takes a bit of time and it's very, very individualized. So that's some tips on getting started. That's like my absolute 101 discussion. And some of the questions that I often get asked around for starting businesses is what's here. And as it says, please don't hesitate to throw some questions in the Q&A. I'm going to run through these and then talk through what it takes to start a really great business for impact. And then we'll open up for a conversation. So from here, do you have to do everything when you start a business? Well, look, to some degree, yes, you do, because it is your business and it's your time that you're putting into it. Anything that you don't do, you're going to have to pay someone for. So it's really important that you think about what can you do. But one of the things that we love helping people through and the wealth of software that's out there now that you can actually use to run a business efficiently and effectively. So you don't have to do every single task from go to woe. You can actually automate some processes or get software platforms to talk to each other. And that's something that does take a little bit of time to work through, but each business has different skills, different needs, really easy to work through that. A lot of people doubt that they actually have a good enough idea in the first place. And don't worry, I've definitely been there myself. From my perspective, there are sort of three things that I look at for what makes what you should consider for your business. One of them is actually who your target audience is and what your customers think about it, because often when you think about what your business does, you might not actually be in your target customer group, and that's okay. What do your customers think of this? And do they really appreciate this? Do they need this in their life? The next part is the financial model. Is it financially sustainable to operate in this model? Can you make enough money from your customers to cover your costs and do a little bit more? And then the third part is the operational element. Can you repeat what you are doing as a system time and time and time again? Because each business, it's actually in the sweet spot of those things. Your customer wants it, it's financially sustainable, and you can operationalize it. If your idea is not wanted by customers, they won't knock on your door. If your business can't be repeated time and time again, people won't come back. And for the third part, if you aren't actually making enough money to cover your costs, there is a point where you will have to close your doors. So for me, a great idea sits in the sweet spot of those three. And you've actually got to consider all three of those elements. If you can't operationalize, if you can't systemize this and repeat it again and again for customers, I don't think your idea is going to get that traction that you want, but let's actually focus on that. If your revenue model doesn't work, let's focus on that. If your idea doesn't resonate with your customers, let's focus on that. But it's about getting in the middle of that. But obviously, if you're not your own customer, you're going to doubt the idea every single day because it doesn't fit in your life, but your customers actually want this. The next one is, I don't have enough money to start. I'm a really big fan on bootstrapping businesses. I helped a 19-year-old a little while ago who wanted to, when we costed it out, about $450,000 to start a retail store. It's kind of a scary amount even for me to think about, and I'm sure for most of us here on the call as well. But when we started going through and went, okay, so what do we actually need to start? We actually brought it back to about a $1,500 startup cost for basically her own manufacturing, selling her own products, building your own brand online, and then starting to add suppliers to it. So once she got the traction, then she'd start going to markets and using that as a footprint and getting people really excited, and then starting to pop up in physical locations to then become a full retail store. So we took it back to the absolute basics. And to work through that and go, how do you actually retain control of it? Yes, you can go and seek investment. Yes, you can go get a bank loan, but there's something really special about what we call bootstrapping your business idea, but working really hard yourself. And then knowing that all that revenue that you generate and all the profit you generate is yours. As I mentioned, Illuminate started, I bought my first set of business cards and banners after my first customer paid the bill, because I didn't really actually need that to start. I needed it once we got going, but I didn't need it when we started, and really carefully thought through what is the bare minimum that we need to get that's absolutely essential to deliver quality product, but also let's not worry about anything else that realistically, if it wasn't there, no one would notice. The next one is when I have to work when my customers want me. This is always a big fear for many people because if you're doing this as a hobby on the side, you start to think, oh, I don't want it to interfere with everything else that I do. But on the flip side of it, for me, I'm a really big one around actually, no, if you're upfront about this, if you're only going to work between 9:30 and 2:30, because this is sort of that, hey, I'm coming back into the workforce, my children are at school and I want to be available to help them before and after school, then tell people and just put that in your email signature. You're available between these hours. You can schedule emails. You can do all sorts of stuff out of hours, but think about when do you actually physically need to turn up with your customers? And then outside of that, be really careful around that. And be really I'm a big one on being really open around it. If you're not going to be available at a certain time, don't sort of say yes to customers for it, but give them a reason and people will support you and will back you. And we'll have that conversation with you. And honestly, if they don't, that's where I sit there and go, that's a check against, from my perspective, going, is this a customer I actually want to work with? Now, at the start, you kind of want to make as much money as possible. I understand that. But as you get going, you don't want to be working with people that work against you and don't support your values and the way that you work. If you're doing it in a certain way, then letting your customers know when you are available is really, really great. Last one is, isn't it lonely to start a business? Look, it can be. And I'm really an encourager of getting out in networking events, joining sessions, joining workshops, talking to people, building relationships with others so that you can have people to talk to as you go through this process, because it can be scary. But it's also, you want to have those encouragers around you that are going through similar journeys. All right. So as I mentioned, please don't hesitate to throw other questions that you might have in the chat. But as you can see, I'm really eager to jump into what makes a great idea for impact. And this is sort of the last topic I really want to cover before we open up for our conversation. So you want to start something with impact. And for me, I'm running into more and more people who go, you know what, the profit at the end of the day, I just want to cover my costs. I want to make a little bit of money myself to be able to pay myself a wage. But outside of that, couldn't care less what happens with it. And I actually think that's a very Tasmanian way of working with things. The Tasmanian brand of the quiet pursuit of the extraordinary. I think many of us look for impact in what we do. And so social enterprise is a great model. The Social Enterprise Network of Tasmania has only just recently formed. And obviously the Shift Lab is a social impact incubator, and it's the first of its kind in Tasmania. If you want to start a social enterprise, by far and away, the best definition is the social traders one. There isn't an official sort of legislative requirement of what a social enterprise is from an Australian context. I've worked with a couple of international partners on what other countries could do. But we don't have that model here in Australia. But the social traders one by far and away is the best. And the three elements they have is that you are driven by a cause, that your majority of revenue comes from trading, and the majority of profits are given back to the cause. And so the first one, the cause or the purpose, can be economic, cultural, social, or environmental. And so this is the reason for your enterprise to exist, to drive a positive change in one of these areas. And so with this, it's around what are the economic barriers that you might be overcoming. You might be creating employment opportunities for people. Cultural opportunities, how do we support? Because that sort of cultural expression is a core part of who we are as a human race, and what does that mean for that? The social elements, how do we build greater social connections and break down some of those barriers, or environmental issues? And so with that's what the cause is that you really want to focus on. And that's what you start with from your enterprise perspective. The next point, majority of revenue comes from trading with customers. A lot of people will start going, oh, I can get money from the government or get donations, and we'll do some door knocking and things like that. Actually, a great social enterprise provides a customer something they're willing to pay for. And they come to you because they know of your impact. And so really, you've got to build a business model that actually works with customers. And often this is the biggest one that I see lots of social enterprises don't quite tick. Well, they say they're social enterprises. They don't tick this box because they either get donations or they get grants. But realistically, you trade with your customers and you provide value for your customers they pay for, but the value goes further because of the impact that you deliver. And so you've got to make sure that you've got a model that your customers will pay for. The last one is a majority of your profits are either given or reinvested to the cause. By majority, we're saying over 50%. And realistically, if you've got great financial, acumen in the way that you run your business, you pay all your expenses, whatever is left over, you reinvest in. 100% of your profits are reinvested back in. That's the way most social enterprises do work. And there are some great ones around Australia I've had the privilege of working with that are all basically looking at that 100% profit reinvested back into the cause at the top that they're really focused on. But that's a social enterprise. That is how a social enterprise, sort of the three pillars that I'd be recommending for you to think about. And with that, then the impact models, that third part to actually support. Here's the 3 ways that social enterprises typically create impact. Again, this is from Social Traders. They are employment generating, so they actually create employment opportunities for marginalized people. One of the best ones is, it's just falling out of my head. Cafe in Hobart. I'm gonna, it's really annoying. It's on the tip of my tongue. But there's a great cafe in Hobart that is all about creating jobs for young people. Hamlet, thank you, Paula, for that. I appreciate it. So many other words on the tip of my tongue, but yes, Hamlet in Hobart. If you haven't been there, go and do that. It's great to see how they're offering support for young people to start businesses in Victoria. The Street program offers a very similar opportunity. But again, creating jobs and employment for people that otherwise don't have access to them. We've got the cafe next door here in Launceston that provides opportunities for people with disabilities to explore that. Again, they're obviously going to pay more in employment costs and staff costs, but that opportunity is worth it. And that is where the impact model comes back through. The community need, as the second one, is delivers accessible products and services that meets the need of the community that are not met by the market. And so this is programs where you're actually offering something to the community, whether you're offering maybe food hampers for people who are in emergency food relief, or a range of other opportunities that you go, wait, we're going to meet the need of the community through our profits. We're going to reinvest back into this area. It might not be something specifically the business gives that they already have on hand, but again, that meets the need. And the last one there is a profit redistribution, which is putting the money back towards charitable organizations. Back in the day when Thank You Water started, you had the code and they gave them the money to water charities from an international perspective. So they didn't actually do the grunt work on the impact, but they provided the funding for those organizations that were structured to do it. So again, they're your 3 social impact models. All right, I'm going to race through these last couple of points about what I believe helps you drive an impact-driven business, and then we will open up for some discussions. For me, first of all, if you are driving an impact-driven business, make sure you live and breathe the cause, that you actually really understand the problem that you want to solve for impact and focus on what that challenge is and what that cause is, and make sure it's a core part of everything that you do. It has to be part of your staffing. It has to be part of your marketing, part of your operations. If you have your cause just printed on a wall and your business operates against that or without that in mind, then I have a concern about what that cause actually means for you. Build it into everything that you do. Illuminate, we run as a for-purpose organization with young people. We're constantly mentoring. Actually, we constantly are trying to engage with UTAS iPrep students, and we've taken a number of students through the TISB programs as well. And we get them involved where we can. We get young people to help us work with our marketing, our operations where we can to support and engage what we do, but also for us to give back and to live our cause in everything that we do. The next one is to measure the impact. Don't just think because you tick a box and go, hey, we're helping. I encourage you to think about how do you actually measure the difference that you create. Illuminate, we track and we ask for students to complete evaluation forms based on their confidence so that we can track the growth in their confidence. If you want to make an impact in something, track it, put numbers around it, because those numbers, what will people sit up and take notice of? And so make sure that you are measuring whatever impact you do. You look towards the Sustainable Development Goals, which I have some of them behind me here. They all have targets underneath every single SDG. So what can you do around that? And then share the stories. Bring stories through every single time that you can. You have stories to share. They are the impact, they are the difference. Yes, the numbers are really great, but we're emotive beings. We care about stories. And so what are the stories that you can share that show that your cause matters to you? As a social enterprise, your customers do matter. So please make sure you focus on keeping your customers loyal and why they should come back. If they don't understand the impact, then they've missed a really core part for them to keep coming back as well, because you want to empower your customers to then tell your stories for you. And so they tell other people the same way that I'm talking about social enterprises that I've run into. How are you then doing the same thing? And as a business owner, how are you actually supporting people to go down that path? The last one there is what's the tangible difference of every purchase? Really break it down to every time you buy something, this is the impact that it makes. Tom's Shoes was probably one of the best ones I've ever seen for this. For every pair of shoes you bought, they gave a pair of shoes away. Simple as that. So you knew every single time you made a purchase, you made a difference. While it's great to be able to support businesses that will obviously create those opportunities, what's my investment worth to you? If you talk about that, then it's very easy to go, hey, I should put in, buy twice, buy 3 times, buy 4 times. I'll go and buy it for friends at Christmas and tell them what their impact has gone towards. And so really think about how your customers matter. But ultimately, social enterprises are still businesses. So don't be afraid of making your customers pay a fair price. Don't just think because we're impact driven and this sort of stuff, we're going to cut some corners. No, I actually encourage you to think of how to actually make your business run really at a fair price and kind of show up those businesses that aren't doing a great job in actually being for purpose and for impact. And profit isn't a dirty word because you're obviously investing it for impact. If you can save your margins by saving costs or looking over things and creating efficiencies that creates more profit at the end of the day, and that profit is reinvested for impact, that's a good thing. So that's okay. And I encourage all social enterprises to strive to be great in all areas. Don't just sort of cut a corner and go, hey, we're a little bit charitable, we're a little bit community-based. No, be great in all things because that's where you can showcase how it should be done to the rest of our community. And then just get the help that's available. Tasmania, I would argue, is actually the best network of support for new and existing businesses through state government programs, through federal government programs. Get the help that's available so that you can run a really great business. And because if you can run a better business, then you can provide more support towards the cause that matters. My absolute essentials when you are starting a business is to have these three things sorted: to know your problem, to know your solution, and know your customer. I've talked enough about the cause, about the problem that you want to solve. But basically, if you've got a customer coming along, is that a problem worth enough for them to pay for it? Sometimes we have some problems that people will pitch and you're like, yeah, but would you really pay for that? Maybe, maybe not. So think about a problem that's big enough that someone would actually basically pay their own money to be able to cover this, to be able to put this forward. And is this actually worth them making that investment? The second one is to know your solution. I've worked with a number of people who spend 40 minutes telling me what their business is, and still it's very hard to make sense of what it could be. And so I encourage you to take the time to run through a 30-second pitch on what your idea is. What is the impact? What's the difference that this makes? And really get it right so that you know your idea inside and out, so you don't have customers that are wrapping it better than you are, but you learn from them as they do that so that you can learn what they are saying. The last one is to know your customer. And I kind of talk about knowing too much about your customer in the way that if they're really, energized at 8 o'clock in the morning, that you've got to meet them at that energy level because you know that's what they are. If you know what they're allowed, their financial delegations are in a system, then kind of pick up that information and learn about it, because that's how you can shape your business to better support your customers. And you know when it gets elevated and when it doesn't. So take the time to really think through who your customers are. I'm a big one on building motivations for my customers. Why are they doing business with me? Not just their age and the demographics and where they're from, but why are they doing business with me and what's their motivation? So I can then match their motivations and I can talk to them about what they exactly are looking for and help them meet that need. And so that for me is my big 3 essentials that I kind of want to leave you with on that. So know your problem, know your solution, and know who your customer is. I talked a little bit before about the Shift Lab. We are open for registrations at the moment. We're in the second stage of the first round of applications. But if you are here on this call and you are interested in it, we are that'll close off on the 10th of October. And so you have a little bit of time if you want to jump in and you think, hey, this could be really cool and I could be involved in a session either in Launceston, or put yourself forward for a registration for next year if you're interested in that. You can scan that QR code there or just send an email to impact@theshiftlab.com.au, or the link, theshiftlab.com.au/register will take you straight there. But this isn't just about me just harping on for ages talking to you. This is where I open up for a bit of a Q&A as well. And so any questions that you have about starting a business, about social enterprise, about the Shift Lab, about anything, this is your chance to ask it, because I would love to help you out where I can. And I'm sure there's enough people here that are going, I wonder, like, let's use this time because your question is probably something that someone else is going to ask or thinking about as well. And so please throw those forward. Otherwise, Rebecca, I'll hand back to you just in case I've missed anything there. But that's a very quick run through. So you think you want to start a business?
Excellent. I think we've got problems with our mute and unmute today. Thanks so much, Adam. That was a really terrific run through of starting a business. And so I'm encouraging everybody to, like Adam, throw your questions in there. We've got around 20 minutes or so to have your expertise, here for everybody listening. We do have a few questions that have been submitted beforehand. And Adam, you talked a little bit through it, but I'd like to unpack through the question we're asked. the question was, I'm interested in your thoughts in the order that things should happen. So the questionnaire says, as someone who has set up 2 businesses, they still get caught and have to race to meet deadlines to things that they've only learned about days before. So what would be your response to that question?
Yeah, that's a great question, that one. So for me, obviously, I've sort of talked through the registration and the starting process. And then once you've got that in place, I'm a big one on testing with customers. And so actually taking a couple of steps and actually going, wait, can I try something new? Not the full business scope, but just enough to kind of get your sense of your customers in that regard, because I think that's when your preconceptions are challenged. And I think that's often where a lot of things actually start to go, oh, this is actually what my customers care about and what they don't care about. And so that's a really important part to go through a test process. And then as you're starting to build out, and probably where this question comes more towards, I'm a big one on, there's a strategy that comes out of MIT that talks about the beachhead market as a strategy to start a business. And it's based on that military tactic. If you're going to take a coastland, you focus all your energy on a small plot of land, you start there and then you build out from there. So I always talk about the first 5 customers. And so don't go crazy trying to get every customer across the line, because it's a lot of work. But if you focus on that first 5, you start to go, okay, who am I talking to? What do I need to do for them? And when they ask something, you are more aware of what they do. Now I'm 11, 12 years down the path for Illuminate. I go to an event and I'll talk to 100 schools at once. But back when we started, every single conversation gave me an insight about my customers that I needed to know about. I remember the time a customer asked us about our curriculum links, and I went, oh, we should really do something about it. And now we have 8 45-page documents at each year level of the curriculum links. And then I found out the Victorian curriculum is different to the national curriculum. But again, it's taking the time for that. And so that's kind of where I sit there and I go, you've got to probably slow down that growth trajectory that you're on, because if you're missing those little points that customers are asking you about, that's where I kind of go, just focus on those first ones, build it really solidly for the first couple of customers, and then you can replicate and systemize it. If you're sort of getting caught by having too much happening at once, I kind of go, you're probably chasing too many customers to start with. And in that, you probably got some cracks showing. And that's not what anybody wants to do. Your passion clearly shows by submitting a question beforehand, it shows that you're keen to make this happen. But I guess that's my recommendation would be just how to slow down that sort of step and just go, no, let's focus on a couple of customers, really pay attention to it. And not so much to park the other ones, but just to kind of just hold off on those other ones a little bit, get your systems down pat, get the process right. And again, that's where the test for me comes through, because once you deliver it and you understand it, then that's where some other things can start to come through and you can start to go, wait, this is a better system to work with.
So Adam, is there good ways to kind of capture your customers and what they're thinking? Because you've mentioned in both the answer to that, but through your presentation. So are there little, hints and tips of capturing customers? So obviously it might be face-to-face or if they contact you, but what else?
Yeah, so face-to-face, absolutely great, because then you can read the whole range of emotions, not just like if I just sat behind the screen, you probably get a sense that I'm passionate, but you probably read more from seeing me in here. So yeah, big one on phone calls. I'm sort of, from my perspective, from when we do our lead generation for Illuminate, to be the boring terms, is basically send us an email and I'll give you a phone call, because I can chat to you and I can understand what you need. And so I would encourage you in those starting points to create as many conversation pieces as you can, not to just like an online form works to get the right things. But when you talk to someone, you get to learn so much more that online form, while it's efficient at the starting point, you're going to get more benefit out of talking to someone. I'm really big on then actually making sure there's interaction points and check-in points through your service delivery and your customer delivery, so that you can actually engage with them and see how they're feeling. A lot of businesses kind of go, once I've got the conversion, I'm good. No, actually go through the whole process. And let's look at how do we actually make sure that you are constantly checking and touching base to go, wait, have we got this right? Have we missed an opportunity to interact? And then actually, and a lot of businesses, it's actually scary to do, but I encourage people to do it. Like, reach out, like actually ask customers for testimonials and feedback. I worked on the West Coast Wilderness Railway, doing their social media and digital marketing probably 6-7 years ago. And one of the strategies we helped put in place was an email that went out 2 days after they were on the train, with like an email that was, look, it was mail merged out. We all knew it, but it had the signature of the general manager saying, thank you for experiencing history with us. If you really enjoyed it, like, please let us know. Here's the links to TripAdvisor and Facebook. And the reviews went through the roof because people were encouraged to respond. Like, many of us just kind of don't do it. But when you actually ask someone and go, hey, I'd love your feedback. What did you think? Or have the conversations with your customers. And so don't sort of just be like, let's get in there, let's make some money, let's do some stuff. I like to level up those conversations and be really personable in that. A lot of my Victorian contacts over the last 2 years, for example, haven't been able to leave their house. So I've had just casual conversations with them, even though got business relations underneath it. We've just had a chat or go and grab a coffee together and do that sort of stuff. And I actually find those conversations, you learn so much more. And so just kind of be open to really having rich conversations with your customers and find those opportunities through the process, not just to go, oh, tick a box on a form. No, actually, can I jump on the phone for 5 minutes? Yeah. And I just build that into your process.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? There's nothing like, building relationships through a good phone chat as well.
Yep.
Just quickly, I'm interested, do you think there's been a change in the pandemic with how people have behaved as well? And, in this space?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, I've been an entrepreneurship facilitator over the last 2 years, and we sort of had a steady round of people that wanted to do things, but basically 200 to 300% increase in the service during the pandemic because people went, I want to go create something. The amount of people that went, I want to go create something that I actually love doing. And there was a bit of flexibility in that. The amount of people that were job seekers that had the COVID supplements that when I'm not going back, I want to go create my own job. So we definitely have seen that. I think we care more about local, but I think my perspective is, a Tasmanian context, we've always done that well. I've noticed that when I've traveled around Australia and been back out on the road over the last couple of weeks, that people are thinking more about how to support local businesses better. And it's a really exciting thing. And I just look at, no, that's kind of what we've always done in Tassie. So I think we've highlighted that and we've strengthened that, and we're probably better at promoting it, and other people are better at looking for it. But I actually almost argue we were always doing that. And I think with that, then people have thought about how their customers are further afield. And so they don't just have to physically deliver to one spot. They are looking at going, wait a minute, if I can jump on the call with someone, how can I do that and work across time zones or across locations? That you still can't beat face-to-face interactions in some business models. I still work in schools and I still have to be on the ground with them. But there are a range of schools that there is no way we could ever have accessed them that jumped online. We've got a range of remote schools and isolated students who were able to jump on programs with a new service delivery that we wouldn't have built if it wasn't for the pandemic. But now that we're back out there on the road, we've been able to balance both. So I think different ways of thinking has come through. And now that we're kind of going on the other side of it, we've kind of got to adjust to, we can do everything now. And how do we actually get the best mix of things? Not just go, well, we can only do Zoom calls because that's all we did. No, actually, how do you get the right mix for the right service?
Yeah, terrific. Thanks, Adam. It's great to hear, Tassie's ahead of the curve in some things as well, which we've always known, right? But,
I'll always say that. Don't worry about that.
So we've had a question here from somebody who's been in the corporate world advising entrepreneurs and established business people. What, in your mind, is the biggest difference in starting a social impact enterprise?
So I actually don't think there's the person perspective. I don't think there's a difference. And I actually would argue that probably more people I see are, more people I actually see are thinking impact-driven ideas. And so they're creating some purpose underneath their business. And there aren't that many people that sit there and go, hey, I'm just in it for the money. How do I make as much money as possible? Most people go, no, I want to do this. I want to meet this need. I see this as a challenge. And so I actually think that model sits there as something that people have already got around. I think from a Tasmanian context, we haven't had a conversation around or a big discussion around this impact-driven business model. I think if you go and typically seek a traditional business advisor, which in most communities is go and see an accountant, we sort of structure our business to make the money that we want to make. And actually, no, this is a conversation around how do we actually prioritize impact over that. I've had conversations back when I started Illuminate that were very much why are you charging so little? Like, you should charge more and make more money for yourself. I'm like, no, because I actually want to reach more people. Like, that's why we do what we do. We don't want cost to be the barrier if we can avoid it. And so that sort of conversation is a very different way from my perspective to think about it. But again, we need to have that sort of raised up. And that's what this as a program, the Shift Lab, is specifically about, is that how do we find those people who want to do something for purpose, who find that traditional programs and high growth investment and high growth startup is not what they want to do. They just want to do something for purpose. That is, I think, a space that is emerging still. I think a lot of people who have found their way and were always going to do it have done it. But I talk a lot about how I think there's countless ideas left at dining room tables. People who just go, I want to do this. And someone goes, yeah, but you're not going to make much money from it. And even I can see some of those comments in the chat around, I don't know if I can make this business model work. It's like, well, let's talk about it. Let's see if we can find a way to do it, rather than just go, oh, you're not going to make $1 million out of it type question. Most ideas, actually, we're not doing that. We just want to create an impact. And maybe there's an alternative way to think about it. But again, it's bringing those forward and actually going impact and purpose-driven businesses are something that we should be getting on board and supporting. So I think that's where we've got to do more to actually allow those people to come to the fore. And just because they're a social entrepreneur or they care about purpose over profit, they're still doing great work and they're still a business person at the core.
Thanks, Adam. I think one of the questions that's come up in the chat as well is around somebody who clearly has some skills, but perhaps feels that they don't have all the skills to set up a business for themselves as well. So is there a way that your work or others can connect to work together?
Yeah, 100%. I love connecting with people where I can. And if I can't help you, I'll find someone that I can get in my networks. And that's the benefit of traveling across Australia, doing this sort of stuff. But obviously from a Tasmanian context, there's lots of people I love to work with. I can see there's a couple in here. Is it Paul's comment that you were talking about, Rebecca?
Yes, I think it was. Yes, that's exactly what I was.
That's fine.
It was a long comment.
It was good though. So one, I'd love to chat more. That email, impact@theshiftlab.com.au. Paul, I'd love to hear from you. So because outside of all of this stuff, I'm also part of the Tasmanian Disability Innovator Hub, where I'm running workshops for people with disabilities to explore self-employment, to be connected with other service providers and look at what we can do to help you on that journey. Because from a Tasmanian context, you are 3 times more likely to be unemployed if you have a disability. And that's just not good enough. And so part of what I'm looking to do is how do we work with the sector and actually empower individuals to go on that journey. And so please, while you might feel like you are a dreamer, I'm here to go, no, let's actually see what we can do. And how do we help with this? And how do we wrap the right people around you? And part of that program, and this is why like open Q&As are always dangerous, because I'll just take it. There's so many threads to go down. But I'm actually also helping people in the sector be more innovative and entrepreneurial, because we sort of hit a barrier where we found that if a lot of people in organizations hadn't ever started businesses, they never actually encouraged others to do the same. And I'm trying to tackle that by running programs to actually go, here's how to launch new projects and new initiatives, but also here's how to structure and support others to go down this journey. So Paul, I reckon there's a range of people that I might be able to get in touch with, but I think this is the sort of community shift that we need to have, not just for our disability sector, but young people, culturally, linguistically diverse, new arrivals, there's a great comment I've heard is underestimated community. So not sort of marginalized, but underestimated, that we may not expect as much, but realistically, they're incredible people. And it's just about connecting some dots and supporting. So I'm really passionate in that space. So yeah, that's simply just get in touch, Paul, please.
Excellent. Thanks, Adam. And I think there's probably another one from here who'd love to get in touch with you is you're being asked, how do you introduce a business idea that's original, unique, has proved its great potential to the public effectively? So
I'm just trying to say, is that just whereabouts is that question, Beth?
So that was in the Q&As from Evelyn.
Oh, yes. Cool. That's all right. Sorry, I've just got multiple screens here. Sorry.
I'm meant to be facilitating.
I know. So one of the things from my perspective is I think it's about that testing and trying first, so that you've got customer feedback. And then it's about how do you launch it and build partnerships and relationships, because I think that's where, for me, I'm a big one on how do you start a business that you collaborate with others and you build those relationships, because then your partners can market you. And I'd be very happy to say that my first customer for Illuminate was the University of Tasmania. They sort of saw this and went, let's actually support this to roll this out in the Australian Maritime College. And that gave me a pathway that I wouldn't have otherwise got as this little person starting a business. And then I delivered some programs for the state government through some digital marketing programs. And so from my perspective on the mainland, I've worked with a university and a state government. That puts you in big shoes. But from a Tasmanian context, not to say that that's all there is, but those are really easy opportunities from a Tasmanian perspective. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of sit there and I go, what relationships can you build and what partnerships can you create that could actually help you go further into the market? But then in terms of those original opportunities, that's where for me the testing element can come through, and you can actually practically try it before you launch. Because again, that's that element that I think is really, really powerful to get that feedback and to understand what your customers really care about.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Adam. Look, another question's come through, and I think you touched on it a bit about setting, timelines on your emails or something like this as well. But it's a question about managing family responsibilities, both financial and emotionally, whilst also managing and driving up a new business from ideas to implementation.
Yeah, no, look, it's a challenge. Nicholas, if I got this all right, I would be an incredible human being. It's hard. And so first of all, just be okay with the fact that you may not quite get this right. And so that's okay in the first place. For me, it's making sure the family's involved in some way and be involved. So for example, next week, I'm heading over to Mandurah to go and deliver one of our education programs, and my in-laws are coming with us so that my wife and I can work together, and our kids are looked after, because we can't often do that because one of us has to be home to look after them. So I encourage you to see where those opportunities can line up, that you can do things together, and make sure it's part of it, not that whole, hey, I go to work and I come home and it's separate, because that element of having that discussion. My children come into our office all the time. It's actually really great. We have a range of kids that come and hang out in our office. We have a school holiday room just down the hallway. But again, actually trying to look at those sort of opportunities and not be afraid from that, and then not back down on the fact that you have a family. Actually be okay with that.
Not sure if everybody's receiving the same. I think we've just lost Adam there, have we? As he's talking about his family, I'm wondering if somebody's come in and pulled the plug on him. If we can not hear from Adam at the moment and he has dropped out, if I could just have some indications if nobody else can hear from him.
Yes, he appears to have dropped out,
Yeah,
Rebecca.
thank you very much. Look, I'm really sorry, everybody, but I'm also very conscious of the time. So I think at this point, coming to the end of a few minutes and that wonderful presentation from Adam, I'd just like to thank everybody for joining us here today. And I'm sure you all join with me in thanking Adam, albeit very quietly and remotely. I know there are a number of questions that we didn't get to. So I suspect there's going to be Adam Mostogl Part 2 as part of an upcoming Explore. This afternoon, we really have seen a prime example of the expertise we have within our alumni community. So the recording of today's will be available soon on our YouTube channel, which you can access through the Explore website, and the link's now on your screen as well. Look, if you've been inspired by today's session, and I'm sure from the questions and answers that we've had out there, you really are, there is an opportunity to tailor an MBA experience to accelerate your career to senior leadership roles. And I think we're putting some details up here on the screen now around our Master of Business Administration Executive and Master of Business Administration. So encourage you, if you're interested, to follow up that information as well. Soon as alumni, you'll be receiving an invitation to attend to the online annual alumni meeting, which will be taking place on the 29th of November, where our guest speaker will be our Vice-Chancellor, Rufus Black. We'll be continuing as well the Explore online series in 2023 for more opportunities of self-progression and creativity. And as I said, probably a revisit of Adam's great talk as well. But we're also interested in what you're interested in. So if there's any topics you'd like to help for us to help you explore, please be in touch. The details are up on your screen at the moment. For now, please leave it with me to say thank you very much for joining us. The end of today's presentation. Thank you once again for being part of this afternoon's session. Good afternoon.